Good afternoon. I am Jason Marshall, President and CEO of Goodwill Southeast Georgia, and I am really excited to be guest hosting our Good News Pod today. So this month, we are very excited to have a special guest here with us, Jennifer Dulong, CEO and Executive Director for Chatham Savannah Authority for the Homeless. So welcome to our Good News Pod, Jennifer.
Thank you for having us. We're excited to be here. And excited to be partnered with Goodwill in the way that we are. This co-location has really been transformative for our team. So thank you and the team here at Goodwill for your welcome.
Well, let's start off a little bit because I know a lot of people know you in the community, but tell us a little bit about yourself.
Myself. Well, I have been in the community for about 30 years. I started in probation, so law enforcement. So I come from that law enforcement background into the legal system and worked with the Atlantic Judicial Circuit District Attorney's Office for years. And then I went into nonprofit work after seeing the challenges that people sometimes face who get justice involved, and when they come back into communities and try to reintegrate, the difficulty that sometimes people experience trying to gain employment, gain housing, and just access to care and services. And so I decided to do a huge career change and went into the nonprofit world. And I was with United Way of the Coastal Empire for 12 years and ended my career there as Vice President of Direct Services and Impact. And during that time, I worked with what's called the Balance of State Continuum of Care. It's very government speak. And really started to get interested in all the alphabet soup investments. So from a federal level, state level, emergency solutions grant funding, Department of Community Affairs, anything dealing with HUD, and really tried to understand the structures and constructs of the systems that were being built around homeless service provision throughout the country, and just fell in love with that work. And during that time, the Homeless Authority needed a new leader, and they came and said, "Hey, what do you think?" And I said, "Well, I think I will." And so I ended up here at the Homeless Authority working with a really great team of people, but I think more importantly, working in a really altruistic, wonderful community. This community cares. It has never shied away from the homeless discussion and people experiencing homelessness and the unhoused population. But I think it's been over the last 4 or 5 years where we've gotten really intentional about long-term strategic investment in homeless services, and we've seen a huge shift in how people are getting connected.
Let's talk for a minute because, I was, and I'm embarrassed to say this, but when I was first introduced to your organization, Chatham Savannah Authority for the Homeless, I didn't know that much about it. So let's tell our viewers a little bit about what you do and the wealth of services that you provide.
Sure. So the Homeless Authority is a quasi-government nonprofit. So we're a little bit of an anomaly. We were stood up through an act of legislation, so through law, in 1989. And that was back then in 1989, the city and county government working together to try to develop an organization that would be a central coordinating body for homeless services in the community so that we get connected and collaborate and convene a little bit better and stronger, because we're always stronger together, right? So that was way back in 1989. And so the evolution of HUD and HUD investments in communities and federal funding, state funding, local funding took us down a different path and journey and into what HUD calls a continuum of care. And so we became the lead agency for the continuum of care here in our community. And what that essentially means is that the Homeless Authority is responsible for helping our community of service providers maintain HUD compliance, to ensure that when those balance of state funding opportunities or when those NOFO opportunities, Department of Community Affairs funding opportunities come up, that our data is clean, that our data is transparent, that we're making data-driven decisions as a community, that we're showing successful outcomes. So not just bean counting, if you will, through data, right? But we're not just talking about that. We're trying to talk about the systems delivery, how a person who was unhoused got connected from the streets to emergency shelter, to transitional housing, to employment services, to vital documents and other things that individuals might need for coming out of homelessness, and then ultimately ending with a roof. And so we're responsible for monitoring the system of care. We're responsible for reporting to HUD, local government and state government. And so we do all of the reporting on behalf of the community. And then the other part of our role is that we help develop a coordinated entry system. And so we implement that system throughout the community. So all the service providers, we participate in that system so that we know how to help someone get service connected. It's really important. And then the last thing through that government piece is we apply for federal funds on behalf of the community. So each year, our community has the opportunity to apply for federal dollars. Those dollars are not specific to the Homeless Authority, but they go to organizations like the Public Housing Authority, Union Mission, and we do get some funding through that, and the city of Savannah. And so when I started, we were getting about $2.8 million in federal funding, and that was back in 2022. And to date, this last year, we received $4.6 million. So each year, as our data has improved, our outcomes have improved, and our reporting measures have improved as a community, we're getting more money from HUD, and that's really important. So that's that government piece. But we are the street outreach team for the community, for the county and the city. And so we deploy street outreach social workers. They do case management. They try to get people service connected. Part of it is Streets to Stability, which is funded through the city of Savannah. But then the other piece of us is the Project Hope Water. That has been a transformative program for our community as well. And the whole goal is not to help people stay outside, but it's to connect them to basic human services and needs and then help them get service connected. We really want to understand their path forward out of homelessness. And so that's just another opportunity for us to deeply connect with the unhoused population and ensure that their basic needs are being met, and then try to understand how can we walk with them to help them get out of homelessness. So that's an important part of who we are. And one of my favorite parts is housing. Everywhere I go, I continue to say the message that housing ends homelessness. A roof in some iteration is the answer to every experience of homelessness. And that might look different for everyone, and it in fact does, because there's no linear path out of homelessness. But a roof is the answer to homelessness. And so we stood up and own and operate the Veterans Tiny House community thanks to the investment from this community. That's all private donor dollars. So the Veterans Tiny House community is just this community who cares deeply about veterans who are experiencing homelessness and doesn't want to see anyone who served our country living on the streets. And so as a result of that, that's all private dollars. There's 46 tiny homes for veterans. We have attritioned 165 previously unhoused veterans in and out of that community over the last 4 years. And everyone has remained safely, stably housed, gained employment. Some finished school. Some bought their first home. Most have bought their first cars. I mean, it's been an amazing project. And so as a result of that, it kind of was the community litmus test. Does tiny housing work? It in fact does. It's an affordable option. It's deeply affordable in a very complex housing market in our country right now. And so we partnered with the city, Community Housing Services Agency, the Land Bank Authority, and the Savannah Affordable Housing Fund, got to get them all in there, to stand up the Dundee Cottage community. So that's what we do.
Yeah, so I was at your grand opening and your ribbon cutting for Dundee Cottages, and I was blown away. Because it is the dignity that comes with a roof. Yes. That you are providing for a lot of our unhoused residents of Chatham and Savannah. And I was just, it took my breath away to see what you have done, and that people can walk into a fully furnished, fully functional, small, tiny home and begin their journey to housing. And it was what you have done, and what you have done in collaboration with other people between the Veterans Village and Dundee Cottage. I don't know that enough individuals know about the good work that's being done. So thank you for sharing some of what you do. The other thing that you mentioned that I think is important is partnership. And we were fortunate that circumstance led us together.
Yes.
And we now have some of your team housed here at our Sally Mood facility, which has really allowed us to bring some conjoined services together. But I know you connect with a lot of partners in the community. Talk about what partnership means for the unhoused community and how it benefits your organization.
Partnership is the only way to go. So, whether it's a co-location of services, we always say that, every nonprofit in this community definitely has a lane. We're not in each other's lanes, right? And what we do well, others don't do well, and what others do well, we don't do well. We need each other. And so that co-location of services and shared resources. So when you look at nonprofits who decide to either merge or co-locate, what they are doing is reducing the cost and increasing the opportunity to serve more people. So it's really maximizing resources. And we look at it that way. Every partnership is an opportunity for us as nonprofit leaders to maximize resources. We've even gotten to recent conversations where some nonprofits in different parts of the country are sharing things like some administrative costs and some operational costs. And just the fact that we can be here at such a reduced cost for rent, thank you very much, Goodwill Partners, and in a beautiful building, but also that team camaraderie and atmosphere. Like when you merge two groups of people, each with a mission that's going to help the unhoused or help people struggling to get a job, get a better job, get a career. Right. That's the Goodwill way, right?
Right.
A job, a better job, and a career. That helps our population. We're not serving different people. We're all serving the same people. And I think that's really important to acknowledge as well. So collaboration, convening partnership, building consensus, that unity amongst our nonprofit partners, that's been a key in transforming what homeless service is doing in Chatham Savannah, but even more so that upward mobility. Right. Like we can't get anywhere without that upward mobility. And so organizations like Goodwill, that's that push that we all need to help our citizens get to where they need to be.
Yeah, and what I have loved is it has really given us the opportunity to get to know some of your staff. You have an amazing team, and the love that they have for the unhoused community and what they do every day through the services that they provide is just amazing. So I knew we had a good team here, and then we got to meet your team and merge them together, and seeing that unified effort and what can happen when good groups of people come together has been amazing for me. So thanks for sharing your team with us and being here with us.
And same, you have an amazing team, and that's the thing. It's really empowering for each other. This work is not always easy. And in social services in particular, there's a high burnout. And so when you have other people helping lift each other up, oh, well, you don't have access to that. Let me tell you about this thing. This is what we do. And it lifts that burden in that moment. And so, it's really been transformative.
So one of the things that and I've learned so much about the unhoused community and meeting with you and talking with your team. And one of the really important things that you do is your point in time count that comes up each January. Can you talk a little bit about what that process looks like and what it means for our community?
Sure. So every year, HUD requires any community that receives any federal funding whatsoever to do what's called a point-in-time count. That point-in-time count is one day at one time. It's always the last Thursday in January. It happens throughout the entire country. So there's over 11,000 continuum of cares, and they're each doing a point-in-time count. And that's an effort for us to get a benchmark and understand who at that time is experiencing homelessness. So we want to know the characteristics. We want to know the backgrounds. We want to know what's the population of people that are struggling with chronic homelessness. How many unhoused veterans do we still have living on the streets of Savannah? How many people with pets are struggling that can't get access to emergency shelter? How many people with disabling conditions? How many people are struggling with mental health or substance use disorder? How many people are just down on their luck, right? And so they're outside and they don't know how to get service connected. And when you send 100 volunteers plus into the streets of Savannah, it's a very coordinated effort. We use technology. We use an app. We use GIS mapping. We go out with code enforcement. We go out with law enforcement as support because, again, in that way, on that night in particular, we're all just focused on who's not service connected and how do we help get them service connected. So we do a count, but we also count how many people are living in emergency shelters and transitional housing, because then we need to understand what's the lift necessary, what are the services, tailored interventions that we need as a community to help them get out of emergency shelter, get out of transitional housing and into permanency and financial stability. And so it's really important. It's basically a benchmark. It's not suggesting that only 657 people are going to experience homelessness in our community. We've served over 7,000 people through the homeless response system in 2024. That's really important to acknowledge. Some people were unhoused, some people were in transitional housing, some people were in emergency shelters, some people were in permanent supportive housing, but that system is always collecting data and information. But that benchmark is important because then it allows us to see, well, on any given night at any given time, what type of tailored interventions are necessary in the community. So that's the importance of that. It's also very educational.
It is very educational.
Yeah. We encourage people who are really interested in why people experience homelessness and what are the characteristics of people who are experiencing homelessness. We believe that it's an educational tool that helps dispel narratives. It helps dispel propaganda. It helps us understand that anyone can experience homelessness, that is not one particular socioeconomic background. It's not one particular race or gender. It's all of us. It can affect anyone at any time. And so it really levels that, and it's not an us and them, it's just all of us. And it helps us understand that we are our brothers and sisters keepers. And it just implants that message in people, and we love that. So we use it as an educational opportunity as well.
And you're so right. I think one of the things that people don't understand and don't realize is there are so many people walking through Savannah and Chatham County that are unhoused, living in hotels, couch surfing with people, one paycheck away from being unhoused. So let's talk, when we talk to our customers and our donors, we talk about, make your donations to our Goodwill stores. That's what helps fund us. That's what helps keeping us going. What does the community need to do to support you? Like, what can they do to support the unhoused community? Because I think inherently everybody wants to help and everybody wants to be involved. What are some things that people can do to support the unhoused community and your organization in particular?
Invest in nonprofit service providers who are focused on reducing homelessness. So whether it's us or Union Mission or Inner City Night Shelter or Family Promise or Salvation Army or Emmaus House, who is now merged with Union Mission and will in the spring help them stand up their new resource center. It's really powerful when people support our organizations. We don't all get enough federal, state, local government funding to do the services that we really need to do. And so if you join us in that way and you partner somebody, that's very powerful. Maybe you're a person who just wants to be a great volunteer. We have plenty of volunteer opportunities, not just with the Homeless Authority, but with all of the service providers I just mentioned. In another way, if you really want to kind of get into the weeds of what's happening in the homeless response system, partnering with the NRHC Council on Homelessness, which is that central coordinating body. The Homeless Authority provides all the operations for that central coordinating body, but it is a wide community table. It is very important. There are business leaders, there's government leaders, there's education leaders, there's systems leaders. So from mental health care to health care, the right partners are absolutely at that table. County manager, city manager. And it's really a powerful opportunity to, one, understand the homeless response system, but two, understand how strategic investments in long-term interventions are really going to be what helps us reach functional zero. That's our collective goal. So I always encourage people to support what already exists. I also discourage people from going into encampments and just dropping off goods. Our goal in this community is to get people service connected. Our goal in this community is not to help the unhoused remain unhoused. It is to treat people with dignity, respect, and care always, absolutely 100%. But there is urban camping ordinances in place for both the city and the county. So it's more important and imperative than ever that we really focus on helping people who are on the streets of our community get off the streets of our community into safety, into care, into housing, into emergency housing, into employment, right? Like, what are those next steps? Because not everyone qualifies for permanent supportive housing. Right. And that's really important for us to acknowledge as a community. There are more people struggling who just simply need affordable housing and access to quality, affordable, safe housing. And affordable for someone coming out of homelessness is different than the affordability conversation that often happens with someone who is employed. Right. That's a different conversation. And so when you look at deeply affordable, you're talking rents $650, $750, $850, not $1,350 to $1,850 to $2,000. Right. It's very different. And so I just encourage people to get involved with the ICH, get involved with a homeless service provider, one that already exists. I say this often, we don't need another nonprofit. What we need to do is empower the nonprofits who are here to build capacity. And whatever that looks like, to support those structures that already exist and help us all build capacity. Inclement weather. The Homeless Authority is the lead agency for planning all inclement weather. So if it's an ice storm, if it's an accidental snowstorm that should not be happening in Southeast Georgia, but does, and stays for a week, the Homeless Authority is that frontline staff. We are helping people get to safety. We are helping stand up temporary shelters. We're doing cots. We're buying sleeping bags. At that point, it's life-saving. We do the same thing with any kind of hurricane threat or major storm threat. And so support us in that way. We don't get funding for that activity, and so we rely on those online donations. You can do an undesignated donation at homelessauthority.org to help support that type of activity and work. We also send people home on Greyhound buses. That's one thing we hadn't gotten to, and I don't want to not mention that because it is a methodology that has helped us reduce street homelessness here in Savannah. We started doing long-distance travel Greyhound bus tickets back in 2022. en masse. This month alone, we've purchased 51 Greyhound bus tickets to help people reintegrate with family and friends when we could verify there is a safe, stable home for them to go and live at. And that's really important because if our community doesn't have the localized resources that fit that individual's needs, but they have a social support system somewhere else, it's critical that we get them connected back with that. And so that is a methodology we've adopted. We don't get funding for that. That is generous donors who get online and say, hey, here's $100. We really like what the Homeless Authority is doing, and we want to be a part of that methodology, if you will, to help people get back home to family and friends safely.
So you mentioned volunteering, and as we go into the holiday season and we enter into this time of giving, we know a lot of people are looking for volunteer opportunities, opportunities to put their efforts to good use.
Sure.
Are there a list of those organizations on your website that people can find as to how to connect?
Absolutely are. Absolutely are. At thehomelessauthority.org, you can find all kinds of information about how to connect with other homeless service providers, how to connect with us. We have a volunteer coordinator. She does a great job. She's actually doing a huge volunteer event at the cottages today. We always need inclement weather material. If you're a person who just really wants to buy a tangible thing that's meaningful to the unhoused community, we actually have a list curated on our website about goods that our unhoused population needs.
Great. Well, I want to thank you so much for coming on. I've told you this so many times. I've learned so much from you. And being a resident of this community for the past 7 years, I was a little embarrassed that I didn't know more about the unhoused community. Right. So I've learned so much from you just in the short time that we've been together. And I know that we've got lots more partnership that's going to occur between our organizations as we go forward.
Absolutely.
So thank you for joining us today. Thank you for all the work you continue to do. And hopefully you see a lot of volunteers coming your way through these next several months.
Thank you. And thank you, Jason, for having us. And really thank you for you all's partnership, because that connection to employment services and what Goodwill does is unique to Goodwill. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right.
All right. Good day, everybody.